matches! We make fire with just sticks! Okay. I'm going to spin this drill on this fireboard, in this case incense cedar. Got cottonwood for a fireboard. Cottonwood on cottonwood would be a great combination. Incense cedar on itself is a nice mix. Out in the desert, I'd be looking for sagebrush on sagebrush. If I spin my drill on this fireboard with enough spin and downward pressure, I'll raise the temperature just from friction up between the two surfaces so that I'll actually have charred cellulose dust fall out of this notch and pile up at the outside edge of this fireboard. And once I pile that dust up enough, I'll put a little bit more pressure and spin on it so that I can actually raise the temperature up high enough to cause an ember to start. Once that starts, I can just let it grow large enough so that I can transfer it to a tinder bundle and get flame. So the mechanics of this is that the drill has its own home in the fireboard. It can't really get out of there easy, but I need some way to control the top of it. So I've got my low friction Stone Age bearing, in this case just a rock that has a nice smooth interior that I was able to make by just pecking and grinding another harder rock called chert, and made a nice smooth interior that's got a low friction for the top of my drill, and it's also the right size rock to fit into my hands so that it'll keep my fingers away from the drill and absorb any kind of heat that might happen from friction on the top. Now there's a couple of other choices, one being the rear leg joint bone off of an elk, and it's more appropriate to think of them running around on their tiptoes. But the rear leg joint bone already has a nice hemispherical depression already in it, and it's a nice size to fit an adult hand, and most of these require no modification. They're ready to go in terms of being a socket. The beauty is that the consistency of the bone is a lot like plexiglass. It's really easy to drill, so I can drill it with a Stone Age drill bit or a metal drill bit. Either way, really easy. A lot easier than trying to drill on a rock. But another choice is just another piece of hardwood that has a little bit of lubrication up in the hole, and you know, chapstick or even hair grease or ear grease and sweat can work quite nicely that way. Now to spin my drill, I want a bow and a string. In this case, I've got a string that's just out of a deer skin that hasn't been fully tanned yet. If it was fully tanned, it would be smoked and then it would look like my clothes. But in this case, it's just soft enough that it's got a nice texture that will grab onto my drill. Then I leave imperfections along the length of the drill so that it'll bind up into the string. I don't want something that's perfectly round and smooth like a broom handle, which has been polished. I want to make sure that this drill never slips in the string. So, we're pretty much ready to go here. We'll pull another fire out of this hole. Got one here a little while ago. Probably only the second one we'll get out of this because the hole is starting to drift out. This is a process that was pretty much the only choice for many thousands of years until very, very recently in terms of human history. I want my right knee offset from my left heel so that I've got good balance. And then I also want to make sure that I keep my wrist locked into my shin. If I get out from my shin locked up, I've got a wobble point and another wobble and a hinge and a hinge. All that's going to be very hard to control from my shoulder. It's really hard to keep the drill in the hole. Otherwise, everything works fine and it's almost like a drill press. Long, steady strokes, just enough pressure to keep it smoking. If I keep it smoking, it'll make dust. And then, a couple of power strokes, we should be there. And I usually count to 10, because usually, if it's failed, it'll have maybe 8 to 10 seconds worth of smoke that I made that's coming out, and I don't really have an ember. So if I didn't really get up to temperature, then all the heat's still retained, the dust is all there, and I can just drop back down to position and do those last power strokes. Since we're there, we're good to go. At this point, there's no rush. So now, we can take our time to make a tinder bundle. I'm just going to grab a bunch of moss from here in the valley. Out in the desert, I'd be looking for inner bark of cottonwood or inner bark of sagebrush especially. Around here, inner bark of cottonwood's nice, so we'll toss a little bit of that in there. Flame's nice, but it's a pretty coarse material for trying to transfer the coal into. So I like to help things along with a little bit of assistance from flowerhead off of last year's cattail. It's genus Typha. Ranges over most of North America. All these wispy little hair-like cellulose fibers are a lot like dandelion seeds with their little fibers. This will smolder really good and let me make a really hot coal on the interior. And another reason to use that is in case there's been any fog or moisture where you've got humidity in your tinder you don't know about or you can't feel with your hands. It's still there, and that can really impede this process. So the idea is to be able to make sure you have all the advantage you can on getting things hot. Now, some of you will be able to see an ember here. I'm just going to blow on this ever so lightly. It's a big hot one. So we're good to go. So there's Friction Fire. Welcome to Archaeology Park. Thank you.